Hi everyone. Incredible privilege and pleasure to be presenting my paper in the International Shipping Conference. Special acknowledgement to CMMI Kolkata, to IMEI Kolkata, and to the International Shipping Conference for giving me this opportunity. Special shout out to Captain Kaustav Datta, always encouraging, always inspiring. Now, my name is Captain Debashis Basu. I am the owner and founder of a company called Navguide Solutions. My company for a couple of years have been devising such methods of maritime training which essentially engages the seafarer before imparting information. Now the concept which I want to present today is called gamification in maritime training. It's a concept very less understood, less talked about, and by the end of this discussion, I hope to have changed a couple of ideas which you might be having. Before I start though, I want you to imagine a scene which you might have seen in so many different occasions on the internet or on the TV. Somewhere in the plains of Africa, imagine a herd of zebras being chased by a lion. Now, this herd of zebras is trying to get away from the lion and the lion is trying to catch up. Now, the slowest zebra of the herd is falling back. Now this slowest zebra is going to get caught. It is going to get killed. What just happened here is that the average speed of this herd of zebras have increased because the slowest one was eliminated. This is natural selection. This is the Darwin's theory of natural selection. This is how nature intends us to become stronger by eliminating the weakest link. Now, why am I talking about zebras in a maritime conference? Let me put a pin in that and I will come back to that later. Gamification. What is gamification? It's a new word. To put it in simple language, it is the concept of taking the core principles on which games are based and applying them to apparently boring jobs or mundane jobs to make them more interesting and more engaging. If I ask you who plays games, probably you'll have the picture which might come up in your mind is the picture of an 18-year-old, shabby, messed up, dark room, hooked onto his laptop for hours and with probably Cheetos in his head or something. Well, if that is what you think of gamers, it might then come as a surprise to you that all of us, everyone is actually surrounded by a conspiracy of games around us in which we live on a daily basis. I'll get to that in a while. Now, even if you talk about the conventional form of games, there was a study done on that and it's called the EverQuest study. You can Google that. It said that the average age of a person playing a game is 35 today. 50% of them are women, 70% of them over the age of 18. By 2025, they expect 75% of the employees in various companies would have grown up with the concept of video games, would have grown up playing video games. What does that mean? That means the average gamer is not an adolescent child. They are taking decisions, running businesses. They are our employees and our employers. They are at the frontier of everything that is going on today. Now, what is it in a game that engages us? Let me talk about the core principles on which games are based. Almost every game is based on these 5 core principles. There should be a defined goal. There should be a known set of rules. There should be challenge and difficulty. There should be feedback. And there should be gratification. Now, this is a cycle on which every game is based. There is a reason behind it. This cycle of this chain of events hijacks the limbic system of the brain. Our minds get into a frenzy of every time you overcome a challenge, you overcome a hurdle, and you get a little bit of social validation from it. You get you derive some kind of achievement from the game itself. It releases a hormone called dopamine in your brain. Now, dopamine is the rewarding hormone. It's exactly the hormone which you feel when you get a incredible reward for something, or even if you check your mobile phone and you see that your message has been seen by someone and replied by someone. That's a small shot of dopamine that you got. It's a small reward. So dopamine is a very, very addictive hormone. It essentially creates a pleasant memory for you, which makes you come back to the game next time also. Imagine a father and a son coming back at home at 5 o'clock in the evening. Father is incredibly tired from all his day work. Son is incredibly tired from his running around in the field. The only difference is the father is literally exhausted. He's completely sloshed. The son, on the other hand, is full of life. He cannot wait to go back to the field the next day. That's what happens when you play a game. So one thing that I want to mention over here, that you have to understand that games are enjoyable not because they are easy. The essential factor is that they have to be hard. There has to be a challenge, and the satisfaction is in overcoming that challenge. On the other hand, when you give someone a job, the tougher it is, the lesser the interest is. Let's take these 5 core principles and apply them to something mundane, such as something on board, a job that we do on board. Let's say the decarb of the auxiliary engine. Now, there is a definite goal. You have to decarb the engine, that is the goal. There is a known set of rules, that is the safest and the most time efficient way to do the job. There is a challenge and difficulty for sure. This is not an easy job. Any job on board like that involves a lot of people. There is a lot of variables, so it's challenging. There is feedback for sure. You know exactly how much you have progressed, how much is remaining. Gratification. Number 5. Do we have gratification from the job? Well, some of you might say that yes, the person is getting paid. That is gratification enough. What else do you need? Not wrong, but to elaborate on that how gratification works and how it makes us feel encouraged. To understand this difference, let us see what motivates us. Why do you do something? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you hug your kid? Why do you go to work? Why do you make a cup of coffee? Why do you keep a watch on the bridge or in the engine room? All of the things that we do have got one of 2 motivating factors. There is extrinsic motivation. What is extrinsic motivation? It is basically a kind of reward which we will get. It's a motivation for a reward which we will get outside of the job at the end of it. You're keeping a watch on the bridge so that you don't lose your job because someone else is watching. You do not want to be in the bad books. You have to keep a watch in the engine room because that's your job. Well, that's the very classic example of extrinsic motivation where the reward comes after the job. In 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, you will have made sense of all these small decisions and all the times that you were honest to your job. Very noble, very nice, just not enough to keep you engaged in the thing that you're doing. That is where intrinsic motivation comes into play. What is intrinsic motivation? When you hug your kid, you are not thinking of a gratification which is going to come after some years. You get instant gratification over there. That act of hugging your kid has got its reward built into it. Imagine reading a book or watching a movie which you love. The act is its own reward. This is an example of intrinsic motivation. So, games are designed in a way that provides intrinsic motivation. No one is going to come to you at the end of a game with $10,000 because you won it. You won the game. That itself is the reward. Why are you here? Why are you listening to me? If it is because someone asked you to, someone would probably ask you a question later on whether you attended this conference or not. That is a classic example of extrinsic motivation. On the other hand, if you are here because you're interested, you want to know something new, and you want to just participate. That is a classic example of intrinsic motivation. Now that intrinsic motivation was what was missing in that decarb job. Even though it had all the other components of a game, it was not interesting at all. Now, intrinsic motivation creates a state of flow. Games create a state of flow. We sometimes call it like being in a zone. How many times has it happened that you picked up a book for 5 minutes and then when you put it down, it has already been 5 hours. You didn't even know that the time has passed. You watch a movie, it goes by in a matter of 2 minutes, but that is 2 hours. So when you are in a state of flow, time gets distorted. You do not, you get involved in the process so much that you don't really have a concept of time. According to flow theory, this state of flow happens when 3 things come together. You should have a clear progress of the job. You should have a feedback coming from it, and there should be a balance between your challenge and your skills. What that means is the challenges should be equivalent to your skills. It should not be so easy that you get bored or so difficult that you get exhausted. And it has been proven that during a state of flow, our gamma waves in our brains flare up. What is the purpose of gamma waves? They boost creativity, they boost innovation. During that state, we are in a very heightened state of engagement, and our brain cells are firing, our neurons are firing at a very rapid rate. It's a very highly potent state of mind. Creativity, I said. Imagine a young boy playing a war game. Okay? You might think that he is just wasting his time, but he, in his mind, he's got strategies, he's got planning, he's got a goal, he can sense danger. He can use his creativity to get out of danger. He can use that creativity to be ahead of the other players who might be joining in from different parts of the world. Now let us put that in the context of shipping. You're about to drop your anchor, your chief officer is forward. You have started the fire pump, but there is no water coming. What are the possible reasons? Is the anchor wash valve shut? Is the fire pump not running even though the light seems on? Is the isolation valve shut somewhere in between? Is the fire pump not taking suction because of the draft of the ship? Is the fire pump diverting this water into the aft peak or the overboard or something like that? All these possibilities have to come together in your mind in a fraction of a second, and that doesn't happen through a checklist. It doesn't happen through just intelligence. It is your creativity at play, bringing in all your information from your experience and pulling them together. This binding together of the experience needs creativity at its core. Now, what I'm saying is games and using gamification in the training of seafarers can actually boost this ability. Let me tell you how games are shaping our attitudes. Every time you have bought something with a credit card and you got 400 credit card points, you got a little bit of satisfaction over there, right? Even though you knew that once you have something like 40,000 points, you'll probably get a toaster. So that will be a $40,000 toaster that you have. Doesn't matter. That 400 points or that 500 points which you gained today is going to give you a boost of dopamine. It's going to give you a boost of encouragement inside to help you shop more with your credit card. Same thing happens with when you collect frequent flyer miles. We hardly encash them. We hardly get anything out of them, but simple act of getting it gives you a satisfaction, like you have achieved something. And it actually can change behaviors. Fitbit, you know those watches which counts your steps and gives you a real-time feedback of how much you have done today. They have proven to increase engagement and increase the fitness of people. Why do you think? We always knew that exercise is good for health. We always knew that we had to do it if you had to stay fit. Fitbit introduced small concepts of gaming in the sense that they give you small boost of dopamine or that rewarding hormone every time you feel that you have achieved a certain target. It's something that is, like I said, it is intrinsic motivation. It is built into the system, and you don't have to wait for 5 years to get that reward. It's an instant shot of dopamine. It's a small reward on a daily basis which keeps you engaged. That is a concept which comes directly from gaming. If I have, as a master of the ship, if I have to get the crew to answer questions to an inspector and I want to educate them that way, which one would you think is a better way to do that? Should I start reading out the circulars and the observations which came from different ships? Or should I split them into two groups, have a quiz contest, and have a prize for the best answer? Which one do you think is going to be more engaging, more enjoyable? Which one would you think is going to be more effective in training them? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. We've all heard that phrase. That phrase inherently tells us that work and play has to be opposite. Well, productivity and fun doesn't necessarily have to be opposite. We can combine the two. We are doing it. My company has been doing it, and we now have objective evidence to prove that it works. So that brings me to, why do we have to make maritime training interesting? Two reasons. First one, classroom training, conventional training has created immaculate sailors. We are all products of conventional classroom training. But the generation is changing. The present generation of seafarers, especially the younger generation, they call them Generation Z, they have come with a completely new set of ideas and skills and idiosyncrasies. They are screen addicted. They are extremely impatient. They don't have time. They are addicted to rewards. Every time you pick up your phone and you hit that like button on the Facebook, or you reply to a message on WhatsApp, that's reward. That's something that is woven. That's something which is part of our society now. This generation is not going to learn unless you engage them. But the second reason is more important. Well, the concept and the reason of maritime training is changing. This is the information age. I have all the information that I need. I can be in the middle of the Atlantic today if my main engine breaks down, and I'm 2,000 miles away from land in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. I will get expertise from the top engineers, the top technicians in the world. There is no dearth of information. There is no scarcity of information. I will get information. But the chief engineer still has to plan the job and complete the job in the shortest possible time to reduce the off-hire. Now that involves planning ability. That involves discipline. That involves teamwork. That involves soft skills. And all this involves creativity, innovation. It involves a person who can think out of the box sometimes to get the job done. That is something that you cannot read. You cannot train a person to be creative. You have to engage. So engagement in training is non-negotiable. It's absolutely essential in today's date, and it is going to be more and more essential in the future. We are really going through an engagement crisis in the world right now, and especially in our industry. That is not my idea, that is not my opinion. There is a statistical research behind it. It's called the Gallup's Engagement Research. The world average, it's at 29% of them are actually engaged in their jobs. About 55% are doing the job because they have nowhere else to go. And there is a 16% who are actively disengaged. That means they hate their jobs. Now, there is a paper written in the Asian Journal of Shipping and Logistics which said that our industry average is much, much worse than the world average. In our profession, only 10% of the people are actually engaged in their jobs. All the innovation that you know, all the ideas that you are all coming from this 10% of the seafarers. There is a 77%. If you ask them, they will say, I have nowhere else to go. That's why I'm doing the job. And there is a 11% who are actively disengaged. They are spreading negativity. They hate their jobs. They hate their lives in the job. They just can't wait to get out of it. Gamification is a concept which can definitely improve our engagement, and it can incredibly help the cause of maritime training. Now, gamification is not a silver bullet. Just knowing that gamification works will not make it work. There are good games and bad games. Some games would not work. If you have to create engagement, if you have to create a game which will be useful, you have to have 3 things in mind. Number 1, you have to have a very clear goal of why you are imparting the training. What is the purpose of your training? Is it just to get a certificate, or is it for the person to be actually useful on board and be able to use his skills to overcome the challenges which he would face? Number 2, you have to be sensitive towards the player, that is the seafarer. What challenges is he facing? What is the level of intellect that I'm expecting from a seafarer? You have to be sensitive about this. And the third thing is to bring these two together. Remember, the challenge and skills should always be at balance. You cannot make something which is not challenging. You cannot make something which is too challenging. So maintain that balance and you will get the person involved, engaged, and create a behavioral change in the long run. If I Google gamification ideas, I get a lot of them. Google is filled with ideas, but most of them are for team building, are for motivation. These ideas are there, but what is absent is how we can apply that to our jobs. This is something we have been working for, especially the last 1 year. And I'm going to leave you with one example of a game here. I'm going to leave that QR code over here. You can scan it. You can play it on your mobile. It's a simple situation where a person is receiving an inspector on the gangway. So this is a deckhand who is stationed at the gangway and receiving the inspector, the port state inspector who's coming on board. Now it's a simple game. You have choices. According to your answers, you get scored. What I want to highlight over here is sometimes there are right answers and then there are better than right answers. For example, the inspector comes. You say, hi, welcome on board. You smile and you ask for identification. That's the right answer. Well, the better than right answer would be you do all that, plus you ask for a colleague of yours to come to the gangway so that that person can then escort him inside when you are busy with the gangway. So the scoring system of the entire games goes like that. And this is one example of many that we have created. And the aim of this game is to make the person more useful on board. I'm almost towards the end of this discussion, and I want to leave you with one thought. I want to talk about a mediocre sailor. Let's call him Eduardo. Eduardo is a second officer, and he has taken 20 years of his life. He has struggled for 20 years to be a second officer. He was a deckhand in a barge at one point of time, and then he got slowly promoted along the ranks, and he is a second officer now. He is okay with his job, but he was never that good in replying to queries or to answer to inspectors. Ship has a couple of times landed in trouble because his skills to answer or his ability to reply was not enough. At times he fumbled. Almost every master has asked him to pull up his sleeve. The company is thinking of letting him go. He himself is sad and depressed. He doesn't feel he's fit for the job anymore. And he is also thinking of quitting the job. Eduardo is that last zebra, the weakest zebra who's going to get caught and killed by that lion. Killing him, eliminating Eduardo from the system would eventually increase the speed of the herd. The shipping industry will improve. This average speed would improve, but there is another option. Can we do something? Can we create an engagement tool which will help him catch up with the rest of the herd and still have the average speed increase as nature intended to? Think about this. When we talk about maritime training, who are we trying to train here? Are we trying to train those excellent, immaculate sailors who would have done great even without our help? Or are we trying to train those half-witted, depressed, half-motivated sailors who are about to be cast away by the industry? I want to highlight one more time, acknowledging CMMI Kolkata, IMEI Kolkata, and the International Shipping Conference for this opportunity. I'll be open to any questions and absolutely open to any suggestions or queries that you might have. Thank you.